Hello and yes, welcome back to another video, guys. Now that's right, we have reached the halfway point of 2023. That is crazy. It's crazy how quick this year is going. And just like always, when we reach the halfway point, I like to just do a little roundup of what my 10 favourite movies of the year so far are. Now, for those of you who follow me on Letterboxd and actually have seen my list, because I do rank the movies that come out this year as I go, you'll notice that there'll be some movies that are from 2022 on there. And that's because on my Letterboxd, I do UK releases. So there are things like The Fabelmans, Babylon, on there, and you know, The Whale, because they were all UK releases in 2023. However, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to do it as American releases, so you won't see The Fabelmans or Babylon on here. But when it comes to my end of the year videos where I rank every movie I see this year, I will do it as a UK list. So you'll see things like Babylon, The Fabelmans, blah, 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 blah. So over here, this is going to be like strictly, if it doesn't say 2023 on its Letterboxd page, it's not going to be on the list. So, let's get started. Coming in 10th place is going to be A Good Person. Let me scooch it over a bit, by the way, so we can see the posters. A Good Person. I'm always interested in anything Florence Pugh does now. She's such a good actress. And Morgan Freeman's in this as well, who I also love. And it was a really, really interesting movie. I didn't really know anything about going into this one. And it is a very interesting movie, how it plays on the concept of what makes a good person. How do you be a good person, especially after such a tragic event, which happens at the start of this movie. And it reflects how Florence Pugh's character deals with this very tragic thing that happens in her life, the consequences of what happens, and it spirals into this very interesting story between her and Morgan Freeman's character and his granddaughter, which I really loved. The connection that those three characters had was so fascinating, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it play out. And the ending of the movie will punch you in the gut, but leave you with some warm feelings at the same time. A Good Person is definitely worth checking out. Okay, coming up in 9th place is going to be Infinity Pool. Now, this film, of course, stars Mia Goth, nearly forgot her name there, who is an actress who I've really just enjoyed watching recently in things like X and Pearl. And in recent years, I watched her in a... I've seen her in a few other films, but what other films have I seen her in? I was looking at her Letterboxd page earlier the other day, and there's quite a few films that I've seen her in recently, and she's an actress who I really like. And I love films like this that really make you think. It has a horror aspect about it. It has some very disturbing stuff going on in it, but the whole time you are thinking about what's real, what's not real, who's real and who isn't. And I think that really plays off this film so well. From the word go, you are going to be guessing to the end of the movie. And I think along with that, you get a very well-made film. This film is structured so great. And I love the cinematography throughout this movie. It's a beautiful looking film. The imagery shown throughout is great. The colour grading of the movie is also really impressive. And I love the score as well. It doesn't play a huge part for a lot of the movie. But when it does creep up, it has some really good moments to it. So yeah. Infinity Pool is my 9th favourite film. But coming in at number 8 is going to be... Number 8. Is going to be Creed 3. I am a big Creed Rocky fan. I caught up on them all only about 2 years ago for the first time ever. Watched all 6 Rocky films and loved them all apart from the 5th one. And I watched Creed 1 and Creed 2. And honestly, loved them both kind of equally. And here, again, this one just is on the level of the other 2 Creed films. It's so solid. Of course, since this film's released, there's been some controversy about Mr. Jonathan Majors, who's in this. So I'm not going to speak too much on him. But I will say that he did give a good performance. And him being the antagonist of the movie worked really well. It was a good villain for the Creed Rocky world. But Michael B. Jordan, his directorial debut, he was so good behind the camera. We know he's good in front of the camera. And the fights were incredible. I think that the Creed films have done a great job at capturing boxing as a sport. It's not one of my favourite things to watch, boxing, admittedly. But I do tune in for the big fights, you know, the Tyson Fury ones or the AJ ones here in the UK. But yeah, this really captures it so well. And there's some really good stuff behind the scenes as well, especially with Creed and his daughter now. Some really nice touching moments between them. And there's a lot of good character work. I did miss Rocky a little bit, but he didn't need to be in the movie, admittedly. I'm hoping for the fourth one we can get Rocky back. But yeah, Creed 3, really good film. Okay, coming in 7th place is going to be Air. Of course, directed by Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is really such a good director, I think. And I must admit, I would love to see him do a Batman movie, you know, in the James Gunn's new DCU. But anyway, he again, another great film here from him. He also is in it for a little bit. I don't want to say star because he really isn't in it enough. This is Matt Damon's movie, and it's been a while since I've seen Matt Damon in a film that I really love, to be honest. You know, it's been a good 2 years, I think, or so. But I loved him in this one. He was so good. And the story of, you know, the Jordan Air shoes is not something I'm interested in, to be honest. I'm not a basketball fan. I've got nothing against Michael Jordan, but I don't really know much about him. It's not something I follow, not something I'm too interested in. But this film compelled me completely, and I fell in love with this story, which on paper probably doesn't sound super interesting. Yeah, we're going to show you about the creation of a shoe. But that doesn't sound interesting to me, but they made it so interesting. I give Ben Affleck so much credit for that. Viola Davis gave an incredible performance. And I've got to say, Jason Bateman as well in this. Really great. He's becoming one of my favourite actors, considering I really just knew him as a comedic actor. But his more serious roles of recent years have really put him up there. So yeah, Air, really good time. Okay, now we're on to number 6. My 6th favourite film of the year is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3. Whew, thank you, Marvel, thank you. We've had a rocky few years with the MCU, since Spider-Man, really. You know, Doctor Strange I found very disappointing. I didn't like Love and Thunder. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, while it was good, it was very disappointing at the same time, I found. And then we had Quantumania earlier this year, which was pretty dreadful, to be honest. So to finally come back with this was so good. I had a feeling this one would be good. It's James Gunn. It doesn't feel like, whereas Ant-Man felt like a product, this didn't feel like that. It felt like there was a mind behind this. We're going to try and wrap these characters up and give you some really heartfelt moments along the way. And we're not just going to go, here's your big bad for the next movie, or here's this hero for the next movie. We're not going to just tease what's coming next. We're just going to do a self-contained story and focus on what's happening here. And I love the MCU. When it does that, it's just getting a bit more rare, unfortunately. But yeah, you got a great team here. I love the Guardians. I really do. They're now my favourite Marvel characters. I feel like every time they appear, other than Love and Thunder, they are always just written so well. There's so much emotion behind these characters, and I love the team that we've got now. I really like what they've done with like Drax, and I like the addition of Mantis in the team, and Cosmo the dog, and Kraglin. But the original lineup, of course, you know, we got Rocket, who's just my favourite Guardian. I love him. Star-Lord's great. I love what they've done with Gamora. Groot's always fun. And I feel like you've got a really solid team here, and you've got a much more emotional and impactful story than the previous films. While I don't like this as much as the first film, I think it comes pretty close because it gets a lot of stuff right. I think that the structuring of the film is a lot better than the second one. The film seems to flow better. And visually, it's great as well. I've always had a lot of nitpicks with a lot of recent Marvel films. I could, you know, go, oh, there was a bit of bad CGI here, there, and there. But this one was really solid all the way through. My only complaint is probably the pacing was a bit off, and I didn't like the soundtrack as much as the previous two films. But this was a really solid entry from the MCU. Coming in 5th place is going to be Reality. This was an Apple Plus movie, starring Sydney Sweeney, and I knew nothing about this. This is based on true events, so if you know this story, you might not find it as great as I did. But I think one of the reasons I love this film is because I was completely in the dark on what was happening, and I was trying to second-guess myself constantly. This girl gets home from doing her grocery shopping. She lives alone, and the FBI are there, accusing her of something. And the whole time, you are constantly going, did she do it or didn't she? And when you find out what it was and the story progresses, it becomes a really fascinating movie. And there's some really interesting shots throughout it. It's shot so well, so it makes you feel like this character reality person, because obviously she's based on a true story, where you feel trapped like her. And it's so good. The ending of the film is great as well. Yeah, and it's hard to talk about this one too much without spoiling it, because I don't want to spoil it, because, you know, I would encourage you to go check this film out, as with all the films I'm talking about today. So yeah, really, really fun film. Fascinating, because you are constantly, as I say, second guessing yourself, and that's so much fun. So yeah, Reality comes in 5th place. Then we have a brand new film, which admittedly is not out in the UK yet. There's no where to be seen where it's going to come out. So if you want to see it in the UK, you do have to do a bit of a naughty, I'm afraid. But it's out in America, and, you know, I couldn't resist. And it is Sanctuary, starring Margaret Qualley? Is that how you say her name? Something like that. Who's been in some great stuff. She was in one of my favourite Netflix shows a couple years back. She's been in a few other big movies, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Nice Guys. Really good actress. And this film here is about sort of, kind of, it's a bit of a hard one to talk about. It is about power within, like, the male and the female gender. Like, these two people are put in this situation, this very strange, very awkward situation, and the power between them kind of flip-flops a lot. She has it for a large majority of the time, and it's seeing how this man tries to deal with it or get out of it, and it's a very fascinating movie. And I think a lot of the stuff that makes this film so good is because of the script. The script is so great. You've got two great actors there as well. And there's some really nice shots throughout the movie as well. And I like how it's mostly in one location, and how when someone tries to leave the location, I feel the film was very clever at making sure they came back. And yeah, it's a very fascinating movie. If you can find somewhere to watch this, because as I say, it's not getting a worldwide release as we know at the minute, then do give it a watch, because it's a very interesting movie. It really makes you think. And it's very clever. And I love the ending, because at the end of the movie, you do go, was this character planning this all along, or has this just happened? And it's a fascinating film. Coming in 3rd place is going to be Rye Lane. This is on Disney Plus, and it's not a very long film either. I think it taps in just at 50 minutes. And this film was just so interesting. It's set in London, which I always love when I see films set in London, because obviously I live so close to London, and I'm always out and about in London. It's always just, I don't know, it's more exciting for me. And it's about these two characters who don't realise, you know, they're both coming from other relationships, and they're trying to get back at their exes and stuff, and they don't realise that they're slowly coming together themselves. And that's basically the plot. It's pretty simple. But what this film does so brilliantly is the way it's shot and the way it's edited, because there's some musical moments, for example, and it edits through the movie, like the characters are saying the musical or speak, you know, it's more of a rap music. And the way that they sort of engross in that and tell the story through that, it's very clever. There's a lot of great moments throughout this movie with the colour palette as well. It's a very good looking movie. And yeah, there's some very funny scenarios as well. And the ending of the film's great as well. As I say, it's a short film and it's on Disney Plus. Go check it out. It's well worth your time. Coming in 2nd place is going to be John Wick Chapter 4. I feel like there's two sides to the John Wick fans. There's the people who prefer the first two, and there's people who prefer the later two. Don't get me wrong, I love all four. I think they're all great movies. And I can definitely see why people would prefer the first two, but I kind of prefer the weird wackiness of the later two. Because they just feel more unique than a lot of other action films that come out nowadays. And they seem to have a bit more personality to them. And I just love how big and bold this film decided to go. I saw the runtime and I was worried that they were just going to try too hard with this one, but they seem to perfectly know how to capture these movies and this character, and it is just so fun. The choreography is insane. There's a scene involving some nunchucks, and it was one of the best things I think I've ever watched in my life. Yes, some stuff does go over the top in this film. There's a scene where he falls down some stairs, and it's like, man, I'd fall down like one step and die. But this man falls down like 200 and something steps, and gets up. But, you know, you got to take these films with a bit of a pinch of salt. But they are just so much fun, and they're just so well shot. And like I say, I think when it comes to action films, it's not one of my favourite genres. And I feel like action films really need to have a bit of character to them to really hold my attention. And these John Wick films certainly have that. Keanu Reeves looks badass, and he's great in the role. Yeah, John Wick Chapter 4, such a good film. But number 1 is going to be Across the SpiderVerse. It's rare I do this. Last year, there were only 2 films out of the 150 I saw. I went crazy last year. And there were only 2 films last year that I saw where I was like, they were perfect. And this year so far, Across the SpiderVerse is this year's perfect movie. I have no complaints with it. First off, the animation is just unbelievable. I love how the animators, the creators, the directors, everyone push themselves to challenge themselves more than the first film, because the first film's pretty perfect as well. Not only do we keep that same gorgeous animation in Miles' world, but when we go to other Spider-Verses, we get whole new styles of animation. It's just crazy mind-boggling to me. And there's so many small little hidden details in this movie that no one's going to pick up on their first 10 watches. That it just shows the extent and the effort that they go to with this film. People say Hollywood's dead at the minute. There's a lot of boring and generic movies, especially comic book ones that come out today. There is no doubt about it. But Hollywood is not dead when films like this are coming out. The extent to the effort that they went through with this is pure brilliant. The story is great. And it's just so much fun. Like all the action sequences, trying to spot all your favourite Spider-Men. It's great. The cameos. This is how you do cameos well. You know, wink, wink. Doctor Strange and The Flash. It just, everything about it is great. There's so many emotional beats as well. Some of my favourite bits were just when Miles was talking to his parents. And the ending I thought was great. I'm absolutely buzzing for Beyond the Spider-Verse next year. But yeah, that's all I got to say on that one, to be honest. It's pretty perfect. Everything about it I love. Voice acting, the music, blah, 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 blah. It all works. It's a perfect film. I've got no complaints with it. But anyway, there we go. That's my top 10 list of the year so far. Yeah, it'll probably change a bit, because when we get to November, December time, there's always like a load of surprises that come out. The Oscar bait films, but I love those most of the time. But I don't think I can see Across the Spider-Verse being dethroned. We might get to December, and I might have to eat my words. There might be 1 or 2 films that overtake it. But at the minute, the film has got to be beyond incredible to top that film, because that was something truly special. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching as always. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a message, and make sure you go check out those films if you haven't seen them. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys, and I'll see you next time for another video. Bye bye.